All right, welcome to episode 15 of the Women's Cricket Podcast, a show where we talk about all things women's cricket. Neha joining us, like always. A week that saw the WPL final, a week that saw Mumbai Indians clinch their second ever title. For a second, I almost panicked and said Delhi Capitals. That was just a wishful desire from my end. Neha, how are we today and how's the week been treating you?
Yeah, actually, week's going great. Slight, WPL withdrawal happening here. We just had so much of WPL action in that 1 month. Now, things suddenly start feeling very empty in that sense. But Mumbai Indians, man, winning their second championship, I think it was brilliant. If we didn't react enough on the watch along, massive credit, man, to the way Harman led the team and the way the unit just gelled so beautifully together. I think it's still going to take some time to soak in that the WPL has done. We have 3 seasons of it completed with Mumbai winning 2 out of it. But the season actually gave us a lot of talking points that we did kind of explore, I think, through the course of our discussion. But excited to, just give a wrap to all of it tonight. Yeah.
Completely agree with you there. People talk about, the calm before the storm. I think people should also start talking about the calm after the storm. Tournament ke baad jo vacuum sa ho jata hai na, it's similar to, how ghar pe you see guests coming in. It's all fun and games until they bounce. And then you're like, like what's happening? So yeah, it's similar to that. I completely agree with you. Withdrawal symptoms for sure. The only silver lining or saving grace for me at least is the fact that IPL bhi abhi 3 दिन में शुरू हो रहा है. So before we know it, we will be sucked into another vacuum. So that'll also be something to watch out for, of course. But coming to the WPL, you spoke about the final and what it was like. We did react to it. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, you guys can also go and see the watch along and what we did over there. Harman was fantastic. Natseva Brandt was almost otherworldly in the way she, took the bull by its horns, literally and otherwise. But Neha, WPL, sure, we saw so many things. We've been talking about it. We did our weekly recaps, Jumpy. We spoke about performances and all of it. Strictly from a Team India lens, let's start from there. We know it's a World Cup year. We know there's a tri-series coming up in a month's time in Sri Lanka against Sri Lanka and South Africa. How do you look at it? How has the WPL been from an Indian lens? Did you like what you saw of the youngsters? Did you like what you saw of the experienced players?
In all fairness, a little bit of a mixed bag here because I kind of did expect the India internationals to, step up even more, make much more of an impact, right? I know a lot of people will be like Harmanpreet Kaur has done that, but again, we saw her, kind of peak in the latter half of the season. Shafali Verma has been doing exceedingly well ever since she's been out of favor for India. Expected a lot more from the likes of Smriti Mandana and Jemima Rodriguez. I mean, this was the season for them to kind of just go for the kill, but wasn't quite the case. We did see some, well, then a glimmer of hope here and there, but it didn't really materialize into that sort of a season for them. Like what I saw of Richa Ghosh, to be really honest, because playing that sort of a finisher role, it comes in with its own set of expectations and all of that. But Richa Ghosh is quite literally, given me a lot of reasons to be happy about. Renuka Singh Thakur as well, coming back to form. For RCB in RCB colors is again, a massive, massive positive. Harleen Diol too, right? Whatever we saw of her, again, really happy to see that. To talk about the Indian domestic players like the likes of Kashvi Gautam and, even the likes of Amanjot Kaur. Again, she's not exactly a domestic player because she's played for India, but the injury setback and all of that happened. She's been a massive positive. I was talking to one of my friends, about Kranti Gaud as well. I think we've also, been raving about her pace, reading about her story and everything. She did, really well. So all in all, I'd say, yeah, mixed bag in the sense that I'd expect the Indian internationals to have performed a little better, but the domestic players have still given me some reasons to, be like, boss, in the tri-series, I will, be looking out to see a few names like, the likes of Kanika Ahuja, Kashvi Gautam and all of them to kind of just get a few games, if not all, because again, a small series, and you don't want to thrust these youngsters directly into the international setup and then expect them to perform and then, kind of just dump them. And this is a World Cup year. You'd kind of want to use these series in the lead up to, kind of figure out your combination, because India is still in the figuring out combination, not figured out side of things. So yeah, it's been an interesting WPL, at least from an Indian POV.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting, probably a more than interesting year for Indian players. Of course, like you mentioned, experienced hands not necessarily doing well, but what we saw, some of the newer talents, that definitely was very heartwarming. It also sort of gives us a bit of solace in that cat. Probably we are headed in the right direction. We see a lot more talents coming up. You mentioned names just about it. Even Bharti Fulmali was really good in whatever little game time she got. Nikki Prasad also, we saw a bit of her. That was also great to watch. So all in all, things heading in the right direction. Now it's all about, why can they come together and play as a group? Can they start performing well consistently? Even with Team India, we've seen the odd fantastic performance that really takes you by surprise and makes you wonder, kya kitna talent hai, they can do really well. Now it's just converting that to something that's a lot more consistent, something that's a lot more long term. So hopefully we can see a lot more of that. Before we go on, let's just take this comment by Yassine, who goes on to say, does this WPL showing rather give any confidence in the Indian stars and their World Cup performance this year? Neha mentions Kashvi, Kranti, etc. Will they even make it to the Indian 11? Deepti, Smriti, what do they even do? Since he's already brought this up, let's just talk about that, right? There is a tri series coming up next month. WPL talents. Do you take anyone from here to the India series? To the tri series?
Yeah, I mean, one of the names that's kind of really banging that selection door has to be Kashvi Gautam. I mean, the very fact that she's made it in the top 10 wicket takers list, right? I mean, you also have the likes of Shrika and Renuka, but Kashvi has single-handedly, managed to be there with 11 wickets. So she gives me a lot of reasons to kind of be there. I think we've spoken about this in the watch along as well. Somewhere I felt, do you think it's too early to, kind of thrust her into the international setup and expect her to perform? But just seeing the way she has been bowling in this WPL, especially her initial over spells, coming in later, her fielding again does kind of come under the scanner. But irrespective of that, just looking at the bowling performance alone, I think she gives me a lot of reasons to be considered. Kranti, it might be a tad bit early to kind of get her into the Indian setup. I mean, she's just played for Madhya Pradesh. Her line and length can be a little wavered sometimes. She's working on her pace and all of that. But at least for the tri series, yes. Besides the usual core that we always kind of select, I think Kashvi Gautam has really, really, kind of made a case for herself. Even Amanjot Kaur, right? Like, you've won the Emerging Player of the Season award. You've kind of, left a lot of people behind to, just make a case for yourself. Coming back from an injury, and she's really worked on her game, because when you talk about Amanjot Kaur, she's playing for a team like Mumbai Indians, yeah, which has like four OC stars who will every single day of the week make headlines for the right reasons. You have Harmanpreet Kaur. In spite of that, she's still able to, create some impact in that team, which is massive, right? And you'd want a player of this utility in the Indian team as well. But again, the question is, yeah, you're excited, you want to bring in this talent into the Indian team, but whose place do they take, right? So that becomes a little bit of a question. How will we figure out our squad composition, our team composition? Are we jumping the gun too soon, with some of these Indian youngsters? But at least, yeah, let's hope that, some logical decisions are taken and that the players also get some rest, honestly, because before the tri series, I think there's just the senior women's. Multi-day challenger trophy that's going to happen, which is the red ball tournament. I'm not sure if we're going to have all of our top flight players participating in that, because the formats are again different, right? And there are a couple of them who are playing in the under 23 tournament that's happening now, the one day trophy. So interesting times ahead, and let's see how things pan out.
Yeah, hope I would have actually, liked to see all of these players play the red ball tournament, because given that BCCI is clearly, pushing for more test matches and all of it, it is important that they also play at the domestic circuit, and it sort of, there are network effects to it, right? Like, because if someone like a Smriti or Herman plays, first of all, her teammates will get the opportunity to rub shoulders and all of it, and secondly, even from an opposition POV, bowling to Smriti will make you that much better a bowler, trying to understand how to bowl to them and all of it. So I wish, they would play, but now given that there would be a bit of an overlap, if I'm not wrong, between this and the tri series that's going to happen. So which means, yeah, I don't think any of them will be featuring over there. So that's an unfortunate, consequence of the tri series. But I mean, you've got to live with it at the end of the day. Uh, Neha, you spoke about Kashvi Gautam. Before we move on to the next, Artemis also brings up a very valid point. You want Kashvi, but who is the person going out? Who will be, part of that collateral damage, so to say? not just the squad, I'll probably go one step further and ask you, who do you think will she be replacing in the playing 11?
Probably answering the squad question first, I'd say someone like Arundhati Reddy. Again, kind of expected her to have a good run in the WPL, but again, didn't quite match expectations. But that again depends on, how Delhi is kind of using her. But in the playing level, in all fairness, man, this is a really tough one because you want Renuka as your spearhead, and Tita Sadhu, at least whatever little we've seen of her, kind of, makes a case for herself. But then, yeah, probably I really can't think of an answer, man, because sometimes India tends to go very spin heavy. The tri series itself is happening in Sri Lanka. So you'd want to go in with that sort of a spin heavy attack, right? So will Kashmir make a place there? That would mean probably someone like Renuka, not getting an opportunity. And you'd want to give these players as many opportunities as possible as you build up for that World Cup. So I don't probably have an answer, a concrete answer as to who she can replace, but yeah, it's going to be a tough one for the selectors. Yeah.
I mean, replacing her in the playing 11, that's my biggest conundrum, because I do agree with you in that India could potentially be looking at fielding an attack consisting of, 3 spinners or 4 spinners, even including all-rounders, and just the 2 pacers, one of whom is going to be Renuka Singh Thakur. That's a lock-in. Arundhati Reddy made an excellent case for herself in the last ODI she played in Australia. So does that mean that we are looking past her? Because एक बार तुम काशवी गौतम को अंदर लाते हो, because again, fair enough, Kashvi is, she offers a bit more with the bat potentially compared to someone like an Arundhati Reddy, but you cannot discount the fact that Arundhati is a better bowler. At least she is a better all-phase bowler. Kashvi right now with the new ball, I like what I saw of her. Great lines, great movement as well. But Yorker भी उनका काफी अच्छा है. International level पे can we actually, place that trust in her to, do well at the death? I'm not sure. That's where someone like an Arundhati would have been a better pick. Saima Thakur, who is being used consistently, I'm guessing abhi to unka, given her WPL, she might have to, face the axe, which is fine. All right. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to see better players coming in. So hopefully that also motivates her. But yeah, I mean, if we will probably talk about the specifics of this when we get into the tri-series itself. But yeah, from a WPL standpoint, Kashvi has to be one of the players who needs to really get a look in. I wouldn't mind someone like a Kanika Ahuja also, making a way in, because our top 6, top 7 has always been extremely right-hand dominated. That's where dominant, sorry. That's where someone like a Kanika will help us break a bit of that clutter. And also, I've mentioned this time and time again, her unique physical abilities help her access extremely unique areas, and something like that always works well for the side. Not to forget another bowling option. So I don't see why someone like her can also not be used. But again, there are only so many vacant slots. There are only so many experiments that can be done, and we already know there's one sword looming over Shifali and Pratika's head. We don't know who's going to be the one making it to the World Cup squad. So pehle wo sort kar le. That seems to be an issue that needs to be fixed. Uske baad we can look at, potential options and stuff like that. Quite a few comments coming in. Let us take all of them before we talk further about the WPL. Multiple aspects that have come up in this WPL. No genuine captaincy contender after Herman, shambolic fielding standards, and the alarming lack of Indian death bowlers. Thoughts? What do you make of this, Neha? I mean, first of all, no genuine captain. Agree with it? Smriti, do you think has completely let you down that way?
Yeah, probably it's an interesting one that Asim makes, but I again think, we might be jumping the gun here because when Smriti Mandana won the WPL 2024, I don't remember seeing a lot of discourse on, her captaincy being bad or, uh, all of that just didn't come up because everyone was so carried away with the emotion that, hey, RCB finally won something, and there was absolutely no chatter about the captaincy. So just one bad season can't really define that. Maybe there's some aspects of a captaincy she can work. I think during our watch-alongs, we were talking about, certain field placements being a little off, or her just not communicating enough with the bowlers, and the very fact that kind of has gone acknowledged is the very thing that RCB was missing a few very key bowlers in their attacks. So it was a lot of them, like reverse engineering the process, just figuring out how do we go about with whatever resources we have now. And as you keep saying, this was not the team that they purchased at the auction table. So it was a lot about, just strategizing and making those tweaks. So I'm not going to be that harsh about Smriti Mandana, the captain. But a lot of criticism that's being directed at Deepti Sharma too, right? I mean, she's just finding her feet as captain for a franchise. Now, captaining a franchise versus captaining, your domestic side, are like two entirely different ball games, right? So again, wouldn't be too harsh with Deepti's captaincy, and she kind of had to make the most with whatever resources were there. And barring that, who are the other Indian captains, right? Because the other teams had overseas captains as well. So about that, shambolic fielding standards, yes, will have to agree, because now players have more experience and exposure, playing under the lights. So you'd expect them to kind of perform better. There were certain teams that were just really, really difficult to watch when they were fielding, especially, likes of Gujarat, UP, at times maybe RCB or Mumbai, not as much, Delhi also not as much. But it's really difficult, kind of say that. And even the alarming lack of Indian death bowlers. Again, guys, this is just WPL in its third season. You can't expect a league to, just throw up answers to every single, area of concern that India has. We got to give time to the league to, kind of nurture and develop these youngsters, and even the stars that are going to come into the fray, who will kind of, fit the bill for each of the necessities you have. So right now, at least it's given us some answers with respect to, pace bowling all rounders, who can be possible finishers, who can fit into that middle order, and all of that. But I'm sure we will find Indian death bowlers. It also depends on the captain, right? If they kind of want to entrust these young Indian bowlers in the death. So it's a little bit of a mix of all of this, but I still wouldn't jump the gun with all of these. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with almost everything you said in terms of captaincy. I don't think Smriti's captaincy needs to be put under the scanner right now. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, we need to remember that this wasn't the squad that was constructed. They were already hamstrung with the kind of resources they had. Sure, yeah, there were a couple of tactical flops, so to say, but I wouldn't entirely put it on Smriti. We need to again understand, especially in franchise cricket, the role of a coach and analyst is a lot more. It's a lot more tactically evolved compared to international cricket, where the captain gets to take more shots. So we need to understand that firstly. And secondly, in terms of fielding, I do agree with you. I just want to try and hide behind the excuse that even overseas players were fairly bad. It's not that it was just the Indians dropping catches and the overseas, pros were doing it very well. So I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if it had to do something with the surface, the conditions, the ground, the audience. Was it anything external? Because I don't think I've seen so many overseas players do this badly, field so poorly. That game against, I'm forgetting who it was. Was it probably the Delhi Capitals, UP Warriors? It was like they had decided they don't want to catch anything. Talia Migra, Grace Harris, Alana King, you name it, and almost every overseas player who came in just kept dropping. So there is that, but of course, I completely agree with you. You cannot sort of simply say, India's fielding is just fine. It's got to do with something else. I do agree with you on that. That is something that needs to improve. But like Neha said, it is a work in progress. Rome wasn't built built in a day. Indian fielding cannot be improved in a season, or three for that matter. So we will have to give it some time. It is almost the cultural change that we're talking about. We've never been a good or a great field. I mean, we've never been a good fielding side, let alone a great fielding side. So it'll take a bit of time, and I'm willing to, bide my time over there. We have to be a bit more patient when it comes to it. Lastly, about the lack of Indian death bowlers, interesting point that you've mentioned here, Rasim, that also gives me a great segue. I don't know if the lack of Indian death bowlers is a reflection of us actually not having enough death bowlers, or the fact that captains, coaches are a lot more reliant on overseas players to bowl those critical, overs. And I think it's more of the latter than the former. Be it Arundhati, be it even Kashvi, I think they've all got a more than decent Yorker in them. And that's all I look for. At the end of the day, do they have the skills? And I would say yes to that. They do have the skills. Now it's all about Team India trying to groom them in, blood them in, and giving them more opportunities at that phase. Something we spoke about earlier as well with Kashfi. So I remember that Yorker she bowled to Richa Ghosh. Matlab, kya must execute kya tha. And that's all that matters. Right now, we have to look at skills, not necessarily execution, because invariably captains will be, relying on their overseas pros a lot more than Indian players. It's got to do a bit with mindset. It's also got to do a bit with experience and all of it. Call it what you may, but that's how they look at it. So, इसीलिए थोड़ा time देना पड़ेगा, and I don't think there's an alarming lack of Indian death bowlers. There are at least a couple that come to my mind right now. And moreover, India has also been one of those who uses a spinner from one end. We've seen Deepti, we've seen Sri Lanka as well. So I think we are in decent hands, at least for the years to come. तो उसका बाकी हम बाद में देख सकते हैं. Let's take a few more comments, of course. The fact that the WPL teams chose not to play Arundhati, Radha, or Saima makes me nervous about whether they were poorly performing even beyond the scenes. Uh, about this, I'll just add my 2 cents. Radha was just woeful in that first game against Mumbai. She just looked so out of sorts, bold, long hops after long hops. So I could see, where they were coming from. Probably even in the net, she wasn't doing just as well. Could be a temporary thing, so I wouldn't be too bothered. But yeah, I can understand why Delhi went with someone else because they had enough options. Salma Thakur, same thing. Performances agar aapka acha nahi hai, so there's no reason why they'll hold on to you. She still got 4-5 games. And on top of that, her fielding, she dropped 2 or 3 catches in a single game. Stuff like that will never, help your cause, especially if you're not doing well in your primary skill. So, theek hai, wo hota hi hai. But Neha, I'll actually put this question to you. Artemis asks, will Pooja walk in straight into the squad if she's fit?
I mean, in an ideal world, yes, I would love to have someone like a Pooja because she offers both, with the ball and the bat. I think for the longest time, India was looking at her as that sort of, express pace option, someone who can really complement Renuka, can come and bowl in those middle phases as well. And every single time, she's playing domestic cricket as well, her team is highly dependent on her. But the fact that she's so injury prone and the way the Indian team is moving right now, probably, she'd still have to kind of bide her time, wait it out, see how she's performing in the nets, and then probably give her a go. But fully fit Pooja Vastrikar definitely makes the cut. We've seen the kind of magic she does when she did play for Mumbai as well. A few good performances here and there. Again, it tends to get overshadowed by other performances and all of that from their overseas pros and stuff. But Pooja Vastrikar, yeah, a fully fit one would definitely make the cut at least in the 15. But in the playing 11, would still have to see how she's coping. If she can give you those set of overs, can offer a little with the bat as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and also someone who can bowl at the death. So definitely a great package to have if she comes good for Team India. Meanwhile, Asim just following up over there. Renuka conceding 18 in the last over. Shikha and Arundhati getting smashed by Hindi. Joshita also getting hit. Deepti getting hit by Sneerana. All these come to mind on the lack of death bowlers. See, fair enough. First of all, Renuka isn't a death bowler. And I agree with you, her conceding 18 was very bad and very sad to see. But she's not a designated death bowler for any of the sides she's in. Shikha and Arundhati, Delhi Capitals just lost the plot. Like, they did not have their plans right for India. Again, I know it sounds extremely defensive. Point being, Shikha, Arundhati, that day, that was I would still call that a one-off. Like both the games against UP Warriors, it was almost like they'd never seen Chinel Henry bat. They had no plans. You could see कि उनको full मत डालो, full के अलावा कहीं पे भी डालो, slower ones डालो, into the surface डालो, and Chinel Henry would be tied down. But they just kept attempting those Yorkers and also kept missing it, which meant that Chinel Henry happily latched on to those overpitch deliveries. So that was that. Joshita, youngster, yeah, Abhi Joshita, death bowler to hai nahi, so let's not even include her in that group. Fair, she did get hit, but Joshita, I don't know why would Joshita ever be a part of this group. She's nowhere close to being a part of Team India right now. So let's let it be Deepting getting hit by Sneerana. That's definitely something to be worried about. Agree with you there. But yeah, I mean, fair point. No one's denying that. But I would still say that right now we don't have to focus on identifying acha, this death bowler has done well at the death. I don't think I would look at it that way. I would just focus on skills. Do these particular players, X, Y, Z, whoever it is, have the skills necessary to bowl at the death? Do they have enough variations? Do they have a good Yorker? Do they have a good bouncer? Yada, yada, yada. So I would probably look at it that way and then take it from there. But yeah, I mean, fair point those nonetheless. Fair points those nonetheless, sorry. Taking a few more. Even Herman, a seasoned campaigner, looks to me a bit out of control with her emotions on the field. It's important for a captain to remain calm and composed. Oh man, a bit would be an understatement. Arun, again, going back to that India Sri Lanka final in Dambula. Oh my word, she lost it. Field में भरे बाजार में ऐसे सबके सामने जो उन्होंने बैंड बजाई है players की, it was almost like ऐसे, it reminded me of my school days. That's how I saw teachers blasting students. Like, it was ekdam aisa strict PT master ke tuck 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 are ye wo. Even I was taken aback. I agree with you there, but I mean, sure, it's a personality driven thing. I don't. You can't expect everyone to look at it a certain way. So fair enough on that. But yeah, coming back to the death bowling bit, Neha, I mentioned how it also probably is a reflection of captains preferring or relying on the overseas pros. How do you look at that dependence bit, yeah? That's always been a cause for concern. That's always been a common critique of the WPL. कि यार सारा मतलब performances तो overseas players से ही आता है. It almost seems like the overseas players are carrying the tournament. Now that the tournament's come to an end, how do you look at that?
Yeah, it's honestly a tough one. Something I was thinking about as well, that you just have a look at the top run getters, top wicket takers. You will find overseas players there more often than not. It's you have the Aussie players there, you have the England players, and, Hayley Matthews just kind of making her presence felt. But again, these are overseas players who come in with that sort of a resume. They are going to be, game changers and trailblazers in every single sense of these words, and they will absolutely dominate. But even the Indian players are finding their feet, right? It's not like you've not had moments where, Richa Ghosh has scored that 64 or that 69, or Harleen Deol coming and doing her 70 not out. Smriti Mandana with her 81, Harman in the final, man, coming and doing that 66. So you obviously see performances like this. I wouldn't really read too deep into it because, again, at the end of the day, it's a franchise, right? You have players who are coming and playing for your franchise, not like, I'm representing England here or representing West Indies here. As long as the franchise is winning, that's what the franchise want and that's what the fans want, right? They're not looking at it this way, ki, overseas players ne perform kiya, Indian players ne nahi kiya. Yes, we would expect more from our Indian players, but again, going back to the same point I was telling, this is just the third season. We still have to give it time. Even see the other leagues, right? Like the WBBL, the 100. There also the domestic players and like the native players take some time to find their feet and actually get going. You'd still see some like the Aussies dominate every single place. Matlab unka culture and the way they approach the game, the athleticism is just really really different, right? So I wouldn't really take that point into consideration. I mean, as long as we still have our Indian players performing a reasonable bit, it's fine. We will see them hopefully dominate even more in the coming years, and I hope the Indian players also get a chance to participate in other leagues. I think this is a point we've saved for later about the 100 as well. We would have loved to see a lot more Indian players being a part of it. Unfortunately, we just have the one player. But as long as we start putting in those great performances internationally, I believe it will start, percolating into the WPL and other leagues as well. So just hoping that happens. But the overseas players, yeah, man, they come in with that sort of a persona and they will do their thing. It's just time for probably the Indian players to, stand up and deliver, which will happen as time progresses.
Yeah, I mean, sure. On the numbers, on just numbers, I agree that overseas players probably have better numbers. But like Neha mentioned, that would be the case almost because we get the cream de la cream of the overseas talent pool coming to the WPL. On the other hand, you're digging deep when it comes to the domestic talent pool. And so that is a natural consequence. I'm not too flustered by that. And also about the overseas bit, I mean, there are so many other things that go into it, like not just about players rubbing shoulders over here. Like when overseas players play with some of the domestic players, you also get to know how these folks play. It helps them improve the game and all of it. Just look at last WBBL. Because someone like a Betchmoni had seen Dalan Hemlata and liked what she saw of her, she brought her there. That experience alone, I know Hemlata had a season to forget over here, but form is temporary, class is permanent. Cliche hai, but there's a reason why it's a cliche, and we know she will come good, and we hope that she comes good. But experiences like these is what helps you evolve as a batter, evolve as a player. Importantly, Jess Jonathan, the fact that she was able to play with the likes of Jemmy and Shikha, Brisbane Heat, see how they came good together. Finals are पहुंचे थे यार. So all of these tiny little things also help. It ensures that more players get to participate outside. We will get to the 100 bit in that segment, but yeah, I wouldn't be too bothered by it right now. I agree that it is the case. I won't deny that, but I don't think it's too big an issue right now. You still want players to get a chance to learn from some of the best in the business, and importantly, it is just as crucial for the tournament to attract the audience, ensure that more people are coming in, more players are coming in. If someone's coming in to watch an Answer Brandt or release Perry, so be it. As long as we are getting folks coming in watching the games. So it will take a bit of time, but yeah, we will get there for sure. So yeah, I mean that's on the WPL bit, because we've got a couple of other segments also, or rather a couple of other things to talk about. WPL के बारे में तो हमने अच्छा खासा बात किया है, and we've genuinely enjoyed covering it for all of you folks, be it the watch-alongs or our weekly recaps with some of the special guests. Do let us know, what did you make of the guests? Did you like, bringing a third person, or what do you make of it? But yeah, thank you so much for making sure you guys tuned in over there. Make sure you guys continue to tune in. One last bit before we go on to the next segment, please make sure you hit the like button, folks. Make sure you subscribe to us if you haven't already. There's a lot in store for women's cricket going forward. There's, of course, the 100 draft that happened last week. There's the Tri-Series that's coming up next month. There's the World Cup qualifier. There's India touring England. There's Australia coming to India. So many things happening, and we will be here. Don't worry. We're going nowhere. We'll be talking about all things women's cricket every Saturday, potentially starting next week. We'll get to that as well towards the end of the episode this time. But yeah, talking about what do we have next, we have the World Cup qualifier. The fixtures came out last week, Neha. Pakistan will be hosting the World Cup qualifier. That'll feature 6 sides. Of course, West Indies, Bangladesh, Pakistan themselves, and Ireland making it through from the first 10. I got that right? West Indies, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Ireland. Yeah, and then Scotland and Thailand from the regional qualifier. So it'll be a 6-side tournament where it'll just be a there'll just be a round robin stage, no finals, nothing. Top 2 from at the end of the league stage or the end of the round robin format will make it through to the main event later in India. How are you looking at this? Pakistan hosting it, Lahore primarily hosting all of the games, the Gaddafi Stadium and also the Lahore University, if I'm not wrong, that's the other stadium. So yeah, it'll be 2 venues, but entirely held in Lahore.
Yeah, Akshay, I mean, honestly excited for this World Cup qualifier. I hope all of us, get a chance to probably watch it on OTT, or if it's just, broadcasted on television. There's a lot at stake, man. The teams participating as well. I think Pakistan, for one, are hosting it. They would definitely, want to make the cut for the World Cup. It would be really sad to have a World Cup, sans Pakistan. So I hope, they kind of make a case for themselves. They have some great players. I know that Pakistan hasn't played a lot of cricket since the last T20 World Cup. They've had a couple of, domestic tournament, but then that was cancelled because of the whole fire incident. And finally, they finished whatever few games were left. So I hope that kind of experience helps these players. But Pakistan is coming in with a point to prove, in all fairness. I mean, say Pakistan is a part of this World Cup. I think they'll be playing their matches in Dubai because of the whole problem that's happening. But anyways, coming back to the World Cup qualifier itself, I really think, teams like Bangladesh and West Indies, right? I think they would be like my top contenders to make it, to the World Cup, because, I mean, West Indies has been doing well. We got to see a glimpse of that in the T20 World Cup, right? The way they played, edge knocked out England too. I mean, Haley Matthews has been in such great form. You have such amazing players, just coming up from that setup. WCPL throwing up a lot of surprises. So West Indies definitely is a team to watch out for, and I think will, kind of make the cut. And Bangladesh too, because of the nature of their spinners, right? They have such amazing spinners in their arsenal, and if the pitches, kind of favor the spinners, I think you definitely see Bangladesh come to the fore and absolutely deliver. And with Nigar Sultana Jyoti, leading this side, I think they would be coming in with a lot of confidence. Again, thoda game time ka problem hoga, because the last they played was a while back. So, hoping that these teams get exposure. But I wouldn't be too surprised if we see like an upset, say an Ireland or a Scotland just, sneak in from somewhere. Yeah, Ireland or Scotland. Yeah, I thought I said Thailand in my mind. But yeah, if these two teams can, kind of sneak in their way and make it, and that would be really great. Because even in the T20 World Cup qualifier, we saw, right, how Scotland kind of just got in. So that was, again, a nice thing to see. But take them how the World Cup qualifiers goes, and I think we will be covering it too. So a lot of interesting like double headers on a couple of days and all of that. And yeah, just excited to see which two teams will eventually make the cut, and if Pakistan qualifies, where will they be playing their games? Yeah.
The last bit, of course, like you mentioned, that'll also be another question that needs to be answered by the ICC. Potentially Dubai once again being the front runners over there, having hosted last year's, or rather last month's Champions Trophy. And apologies for that. Thank you for correcting me, Kevin. I misspoke and said regional qualifiers. Yeah, it is through the ODI rankings, 11th and 12th, qualifying, of course, with the bottom four in the Women's ODI Championship. But Neha, coming to the teams itself, Pavan says, I think West Indies and Thailand will qualify for the 2025 World Cup. Right now, I'll put you on the spot. If you had to pick two teams, who do you think will be taking part in the main event with the top six teams in India?
For me, I think it was pretty simple, like Bangladesh and West Indies, right? With the way they have been kind of progressing, and they just look like a cut above the rest. I really hope for the likes of Pakistan and Scotland to just be there. But I think Bangladesh and West Indies would be clear favorites for me. But Akshay, what about you? Like, have you given it a thought?
Yeah, same two sides for me because they have been good. They've also had more game time compared to the rest in the recent past. Be it West Indies, be it Bangladesh themselves. So I'm expecting them to do fairly well. And fingers crossed. Bangladesh, you spoke about the spinners. I'm also looking for like Maruf Akhtar. Just wake me up in the night, and I'll be more than happy to see Maruf Akhtar. Just fantastic bowler. I'm also excited to see a bit more of Sharmin Akhtar. She didn't do too badly in the Ireland series, ODIs and T20s, even against Bangladesh. I think she's arguably the only batter there, barring of course Nigar Sultana Jyoti, who can do a bit of damage, who can strike above 60, 70 for what it's worth. That's where I think she will be a massive, massive differential for Bangladesh. I'm hoping they do well. With West Indies, of course, yeah, they've got enough talent, enough potential over there in that side. You barring the big guns like Haley Matthews and Deandra Doughton, you look at someone like a Karishma Ramirak. There's Chinel Henry now with WPL experience coming in. Zaida James is someone I really like. Kiana Joseph is someone I don't, but she's clearly someone who's done well for West Indies. Yeah, you cannot count her out. So there is enough potential over there. So hopefully, who knows? They might have a nice run, not just here, even in the main event, make it to the semi-finals, potentially. Potentially spoiling someone else's party as long as it isn't Team India. I don't care. But yeah, I agree with you. West Indies, Bangladesh for sure. They seem like the sides who could potentially be making it there. Uh, Meanwhile, are we also following the Americas qualifier with US, Canada, Brazil, and Argentina? Unfortunately, I see we only have 24 hours in our day, and there's only so much cricket we can watch without, you know, doing anything else. So there you go, your glasses. They say Neil again. So do let us know in the comments what do you make of the new look. How dashing am I looking? I've been told by Neha specifically to wear them or not wear them. I don't remember, but whatever it is, उन्होंने अपना feedback तो दे दिया था जो मैं already भूल चुका हूँ. So there you go. Arun meanwhile is saying, "Oh my God, I'm absolutely thrilled at the way Neha's expressions with sign language is when Akshay is talking." Well, thank you so much. Uh, we heard Neha. I don't think. I mean, if you're referring to right now, I'm guessing. Yeah. Okay. Now, meanwhile, Janvi also asking us: are we sure that the ODI World Cup is round robin? Everyone gets 7 matches each, or will there be groups? Janvi, we were talking about the qualifier right now, not the main event. The qualifier will be round robin. 6 sides, each side plays each other once, and at the end of the stage or round robin stage, I don't know what you call it. At the end of the group stage, whoever's finished top two, they will qualify. Basically, it's EPL style if you have to look at it. With the ODI World Cup itself, there are only 8 teams. Are there groups? I don't think there'll be groups. Nah, Neha, that's also going to be round robin.
I'm assuming, yeah, Akshay, it will be round robin with every team playing the other. And because it has a large window of like, from October to November. So I'm hoping that, we get to see as many matches as possible because it's a World Cup, man. Anything can happen. You will see like very tightly contested encounters. I'm really keeping my fingers crossed they go for a round robin one. And please don't put them in groups.
No, it won't be groups because अगर groups में डाल दोगे तो बहुत जल्दी खत्म हो जाएगा. You will need like 2 weeks to finish the tournament. It'll be round robin because there are only 8 teams. Had there been 12 or 16 teams, you could still consider groups. So yeah, and it's always been round robin. Even the 22 World Cup was round robin. So yeah, I don't see any reason why this won't be. Kevin, meanwhile, being a bit harsh, saying 7 out of the 28 group matches will be a waste for the tournament. The ones Pakistan play, 25% is a lot. I don't think you need to count Pakistan out entirely, Kevin. They've also got enough talents, yeah. Like Sadia Iqbal is arguably my favorite spinner right now going around. Like Neha knows about that. I really like her. We know how good or gun and all rounder someone like a Fatima Sana is. There's Nada, the experience of her. She'll always be someone to look forward to. Up top, I know thoda hai वहाँ पे मतलब Munira is an interesting candidate, but ODI के लिए ठीक है यार. Muniba, sorry, apologies. Did I say Munira? Yeah, Muniba Ali, and then the Sidra Ami. who I'm actually looking forward to is someone like Sada Roopsha, the leg spinner, because World Cup maybe leke gaye the seedha, but she didn't look too bad. Yeah, she will be someone to look forward to. And there was who's the other leg spinner they have? I'm
Wait, I was
forgetting.
thinking of Diana Baig as well.
Diana big to hai, of course, but unka wahi hai na, because she doesn't bowl as much anymore now. It's only batting. She is she's like the Shahid Afridi, na, hit out or get out. जो भी है, but मारने का तो देखती है वो. Diana Baig, Nida, that's it. Usually boils down to those two bailing the side out, and so that is like Diana Baig, another name to. Yeah, I mean you cannot count them out. I say, and it's also happening in Pakistan. So they will have a
Yeah.
better hold on the conditions. They will know how it will work. So you can't count them out. I'm
Even
forgetting
Tuba Hassan, right?
Tuba
Tuba
Hassan.
Hassan. Uh,
That's
Very
that's
excited, man. I remember her, being so excited about her from the Commonwealth Games, okay, of 2022. I really hope, man, this World Cup, this World
yeah.
Cup qualifiers, we get to see a lot more from her.
तुबा हसन एंड सायदा रूपशा दोनों लेग स्पिनर्स है, दोनों काफी अच्छे. सादिया इकबाल तो यार एकदम बहुत, जस्ट लुक फॉरवर्ड टू वाचिंग her with the new ball, especially beautiful control, beautiful in drifters. And then also someone like a Tasmia Rubab, I don't know if she'll be picked or not. World Cup में एक ही गेम खेला था, but left armer, good action, really like what I saw for. So yeah, don't count them out, or rather count them out at your own peril. I would still say we'll have to wait. I mean, I wish for Pakistan to not qualify for the sake of the tournament's overall success. All matches can be played in India in that case. Oh, Kevin is playing 70 chess over here. He's referring to the main event. And because, yeah, 8-team tournament, so each team plays 7 games. So in case of Pakistan has to play in Dubai, oh, ekdam, gazab, Kevin. I get where you're coming from. I understand the sentiment. I don't agree with it, but I understand the sentiment. Fair. I get it. Okay, understandable. But even then, like, we won't ever say कि नहीं यार इनको qualify नहीं करना चाहिए. Let's hope they do well, especially after the recent pay cuts. They have more than a thing to prove to their boards. Ki boss, we're not here just to make up numbers. We can do well. So, Neha, any thoughts on that about the pay cut itself? Like, on the one side, you see other teams going, all guns blazing in terms of giving good infrastructure, increasing paychecks, and all of it. And then you see PCB do something like this to their female cricketers. Thoughts on that?
Honestly, man, it's bizarre. Like, I remember reading this article by Ayush Putran, who's also the author of Unveiling Jazba. I mean,
Fantastic
to
book,
just
guys. Sorry, before Neha goes, please do read it if you haven't. It's a book on the history and the making of Pakistan women's cricket. Do please read it if you haven't. Yes, sorry, Neha.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, good plug-in for that book there, Akshay, because Ayush is someone who regularly reports about Pakistan women's cricket, and that's how we get to know. But honestly, really sad state of affairs for Pakistan. You'd expect them to do better for their players. I mean, agreed, that they haven't been performing really well, but that can't be a rationale. Just come up with like bizarre pay cuts, contracts they say nahi de rahe ho. Then there's this whole issue. I think during the T20 World Cup itself, right, of them not being given like daily allowances and like certain money also not being allocated. So it's just like problems after problems. Even what they're doing in the domestic setup is just not enough. Even at the grassroots level itself, even just developing like school and college cricket is just very very average. So the next pipeline of cricketers also is not being built. There is clearly no foresight with regard to women's cricket in Pakistan, which is just extremely unfortunate. It's not like there isn't any talent there. I mean, read Unveiling Jazba and you'll know, the number of players that have come up from this setup. So I hope that a lot of like the retired cricketers, the likes of Sana Mir and all of them, just come out and talk about this. I mean, even Bisma Maruf, right? Her retirement just felt a little like out of the blue and all of that. So I hope Pakistan can kind of figure out their issues and come back stronger. And that would be a fitting reply to the administration to actually take them seriously. Otherwise, we'll just see another situation where Pakistan is just somewhere fading in the background while the rest of them are just growing leaps and bounds. I mean, imagine the World Cup qualifier is happening in Pakistan, but still our top two teams weren't Pakistan, which just goes to show how much they have kind of regressed, right? Which is really really unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, completely echo those sentiments. And I was just thinking of how Ayush would also make for a great guest, at the Women's Cricket Podcast. Someone we'll definitely try and get in due course. But yeah, agree with you. It is a tad bit unfortunate. So, like I said, I hope they come up with the performances needed to just show and, deliver when required and show it to the board. Ki boss, hum hai yahan pe, tension mat lo, please. You don't have to, give us or go for a pay cut or something. there are too many other things going on. Like in this part of the world, of course, politics and all of it. There's this. It's a very potent combination, so to say. So yeah, it is a tad bit unfortunate. But yeah, that was that bad. That was that from the World Cup qualifier. Let's just take this one comment before we move on. Which team is the underdog for the World Cup qualifier? Fair to say, Neha, Thailand.
Yeah, I think it has to be Thailand, man, because we all remember the kind of dejection they faced, when they couldn't make the cut for one of the World Cups. So this time around, they're getting that opportunity. They've made their place with the rankings and everything. So I hope they can kind of make a mark, win a few games, at least for that sake. I think a lot of the players also had the World Cup as their lock screen, and it just meant so much to them to be a part. But that wasn't to be the case. So this time around, like destiny is quite literally in their own hands. And I think even when the women's T20 challenge was happening, I remember one Thailand cricketer being a part of it. But I mean, now we don't see that as often. I mean, the pronunciation of the name is really difficult, but I feel like real fans will know who I'm talking about. So really hope to see that Thailand can make a mark. So in the future editions of the WPL, in the Associate Nations category, we see a few players who could potentially make a mark. But I think underdog definitely has to be Thailand. But the obvious answer would have been Pakistan because they have a lot at stake and a lot to prove. But let's go with Thailand. Yeah.
Chalo, Thailand it is then for the ODI World Cup qualifier, the underdog that is. But yeah, fingers crossed we get to see a crack of a tournament. It starts on the 9th of April, if I'm not wrong, or the 2nd of April. No, 9th of April and ends on the 19th. It's a 10-day long tournament. And of course, later on, you see a bunch of other things happening in women's cricket in general, that is. But a series that recently concluded, of course, was the New Zealand Sri Lanka bilateral series. There were T20Is and ODIs played. One ODI watched, one T20I watched, but thankfully we still got some decent games in. Chamari, of course, left the WPL midway to join the Sri Lankan side for the tournament. Suzie was leading New Zealand in Amelia Kerr's absence. Neha, let's start off with that. Probably the ODIs first, because that's what is crucial given that this is an ODI World Cup year. 2-0 New Zealand whitewashing Sri Lanka. What did you make of the performances over there?
Yeah, I think New Zealand would be very pleased with their performance, especially in the ODI series. I mean, the first game was a washout, but coming strong, in the second and the third ODI and winning. I mean, mind you, on both occasions, New Zealand was batting first, and the fact that they were able to defend that totally speaks volumes, right? About the kind of players that are emerging in the group. For the longest time, people had their apprehensions about, the talent pool in New Zealand, say, post the retirement of Sophie Devine, Suzie Bates, who's going to take over. But you still have names, who are kind of raising the hand and delivering. We did see some great performances in the Super Smash, in the HBJ Shield as well, and some of these players kind of stake their claim in this squad as well. So really nice to see that in this regard we've had players like Georgia Plummer, you have Polly Inglis, you have Maddie Green, all of them stepping up on different occasions. I mean, Suzie Bates, I can't remember any one performance that really stood out. I mean, she's just doing her thing, but the fact that you have other youngsters stepping in is definitely bodes well. And this is in the absence of Sophie Devine and Amelia Kerr, which is a massive positive. And somewhere New Zealand was able to carry on that momentum to the T20 series. Would have loved to see a result in the third one. Unfortunately, rain had its say. But 1-1 in the T20 series is also something they will take. Considering this is an ODI World Cup year, I think winning the series 2-0 against a Sri Lanka side that is by no means, a pushover is still definitely a massive positive.
Yeah, just to be clear, I was looking at who was New Zealand's keeper in the World Cup because Polly Inglis made her debut. So I thought, was she replacing someone or was Izzy Gaze who was keeping for New Zealand in the World Cup? She was a part of the squad. She did play, of course, games here as well, was primarily a fielder. But yeah, some of the names you mentioned, of course, Georgia Plummer, she did well in the World Cup as well. So lots was expected off of her, scored up or notched up her first ODI turn. And you saw Maddie Green also scored her second ODI turn in that first ODI. I mean, second ODI turn in the first ODI. Georgia was in the second, if I'm not wrong. I'm hoping that's right. So it was an interesting series. New Zealand, of course, without Sophie Devine and Amelia Kerr, was important to test some of the youngsters and see what the depth is looking like. We know what Sophie Devine had to say a couple of years ago when it came to New Zealand's talent pool and how it seems to be dwindling. We don't see a lot of the younger crop coming in. But I did not think that was the case. Yeah, some of the debutants really made a mark, at least in my eyes. Brie Ling, very impressed with what I saw of her. Beautiful action, nice run up. a mix of Mitchell Stark and Reece Stockley. So to say, nice smooth action, and the length she hit. Oh man, there was this delivery she bowled to who was it? Vishmi Gunaratne. Was it the second ODI? Was it one of the T20s? I don't remember. Clean bowled second T20. Yeah, cleaned her up in swinger. Poof. Beautiful delivery. So lots to look forward to there. Rosemary Mayer already World Cup में अच्छा कर चुकी है. Hannah Rowe है, Jess Kerr है, and then you add someone like Brooke Halliday, who seems like a WWE medium pacer was आती है, but she somehow manages to pick wickets every time. And then Sophie Devine. So that's looking more than decent. The pace attack that is. And then spin में Eden Carsten, Amelia Kerr, Fran Jonas with a left arm spin if needed. So yeah, all in all, it does seem to be looking a fairly decent side with the bat. Emma McLeod made her debut. पॉली इंग्लिश तो मैं बोलूंगा इज लाइक न्यूजीलैंड का मेघना like the I mean see it's not about technique, it's just the bat is in the air, it's just too loose, but she somehow scored runs, and if you're being effective, that's all that matters, right? She scored runs batting at number 7, batting at number 8, number 9. So good signs for New Zealand. Did not seem so rosy. Even in that Australia series they played before the World Cup and after the World Cup, seems better. But I'll still hold on to my thoughts because this was the Sri Lankan side. You also need to understand that. And that too, Sri Lanka, maybe there were a few debutants. So there's only, you will have to take it with a pinch of salt. So you can't directly say, same thing, just like how we've spoken about Pratika Rawal, you'll have to sort of look at it the same way. So wait karte hain us pe, hum log thoda. But all in all, not too bad at all for New Zealand. And Suzie Bates, if I'm not wrong, again, first T20 I Chamari won it for Sri Lanka. Second T20 I Suzie Bates won it for New Zealand. So it was good to see the season performers doing it well for their sides. And Suzie also kept bowling a lot more frequently. Wicket bhi le rahi thi अच्छा खासा. So usme bhi, that was also something interesting to watch. But with Sri Lanka, Neha, especially the ODIs, focusing on that right now, it is going to be a tough ask. यार qualifiers पहले खेलना and coming through that route. Do you think they can make it to the main event right now?
I mean, the way Sri Lanka did perform in this series, right? I mean, both occasions they were sort of chasing, and the margins by which they lost, like 78 runs, 98 runs, doesn't really bode well, right? Because again, when you look at Sri Lanka and the composition of the team, heavily dependent on Chamari Athapaththu to give you those sort of starts. Then you even Vishmi Gunaratne, someone who's just finding her feet in international cricket, has been doing reasonably well. My mind goes back to that South Africa series where we did see some great performances coming in from her. Even Harshita Samara Vikrama, you kind of expect her to be there. So again, certain players you kind of expect them only to perform, and the rest of the team just crumbles if they don't get going. So in that sense, I think Sri Lanka will have to figure out their ODI formula a little bit. I mean, I think like probably a little bit post-pandemic, we did see, the way Sri Lanka was performing. They were giving us good signs, getting those wins here and there, in South Africa, defeating New Zealand and all of that. But again, somewhere, they've kind of hit that plateau. And I think after the Asia Cup, we haven't seen some sort of a, like mind-blowing sort of performance where like, yes, this is the Sri Lanka that we have always wanted. I hope there is some sort of a introspection with respect to how they performed in the ODIs as well. They still had some positives. I think Malki Madara, right? She was one of the debutants. She did exceedingly well in the T20 side of things. So at least that would be one thing. But even if you just look at the top run getters and wicket takers, right, you wouldn't see a lot of Sri Lankans in that list, which goes to show how much New Zealand dominated and Sri Lanka sort of struggled. Sri Lanka would probably still take it in their stride because it's match practice ahead of the World Cup qualifier. So kuch to positives hain hi. Would hope to see the names that I just mentioned, to kind of step up and see how it goes from there. Yeah.
This is one thing, sorry. मैं बोला ऐसा qualifier फिर लगा रुको. West Indies, Pakistan, Ireland, Bangladesh, and then it me they have qualified. Apologies. Yeah, it was a guffaw on my part, firstly. But agree with the points you mentioned there. Like Chamari barring that first T20 है जहाँ पे उन्होंने अच्छा किया. She had failures in each of the other games, and that coordination seems too far ingrained right now कि अगर Chamari अच्छा नहीं करती, then that batting almost goes nowhere. There were, glimpses of hope or a glimmer of hope in that second ODI when Chamari got out. They were chasing some 200 odd. It was Kavisha Dilhari who got together. I'm forgetting who the left-hander was. It was another new name. दोनों ने 40s मारे थे, so that wasn't too bad. But that first T20 as well, Chamari जहाँ पे अच्छा किया था. Flash in the pan से ज़्यादा it was a very edgy knock from Chamari. There were too many edges, literally. and she was leading a very charmed life. Unfortunately, all those edges were falling into gaps. There were a couple of drops as well. So Chamari hasn't been in the greatest of form recently, something we've spoken about in the last few months. So Sri Lanka will be hoping that she comes good for them one last time in the World Cup. But Kavisha Dilhari really enjoyed her bowling. Batting maybe उन्होंने एक दो अच्छे knocks खेले, so that's looking good. Sugandhika Kumari wasn't too bad. I love the way Inoshi Priyadarshini bowled with the new ball. Yeah, I know New Zealand's conditions are in her favor. Every time she got it right, T20s mein she was still slightly okayish because she kept erring on the shorter side. ODIs mein she kept bowling at full on. Oh, बहुत मजा आया उनको देखे. Beautiful control. Madara, the debutant, was also not too bad. There was also Vimukti, right? That other pacer. I haven't seen her before. Unka bhi काफी अच्छा था, not too bad at all. So okayish, but yeah, they will be hoping that Vishmi and Harshita, importantly, because these are the two names who've done well for them in the last year or so, that they come good for them soon enough. And yeah, there is a tri series coming up next month, so hopefully they can do well over there as well. Let's take a few comments, of course, before we move on. In hindsight, seeing her performances versus New Zealand, would UP Warriors regret not giving a chance to Chamari in the WPL? Or they just didn't have an overseas slot vacant to include her? Neha, thoughts on this?
I mean, Akshay, I think I've been the largest, no, not largest, strongest exponent of, including Chamari in the playing 11. In fact, she was a part of my playing 11 when I did conceptualize it. But somewhere I think UP clearly didn't want to do that. When the opening pair of Vrinda and Kiran was not working, and I was like, yeah, probably bring in someone like a Chamari, and that would mean someone like Grace Harris stepping out. In this case, T-Mac is not a part of that setup. But clearly, man, UP Warriors didn't give Chamari a game. I mean, एक तो game दे देते यार before she, went out to play for Sri Lanka. So that was a tad bit disappointing. But even just looking at Chamari Athapaththu, right, I acknowledge the bias. She hasn't looked as great as we would have sort of expected. It's always like, she kind of plateaued a little, like great performance, and then it's just back to square one. So it's been a tad bit underwhelming in that regard, and really sad that UP didn't give her a game. But then Georgia Wall just came in and pretty much stole the show. For me, though, she's kind of made that sort of an impact where she can possibly be retained as well. If UP can probably build a team around player of her stature. But hoping Chamari comes back to form, because every press conference, people just keep dropping hints of her retirement. She's like, I still have a lot to sort of offer. So I hope that is true. And even like the juniors in the team really look up to her. So it's really nice to have a character like that who's played so much of cricket. A lot of franchise cricket comes in with that world of experience. So yeah, just kind of hoping that she keeps, going from strength to strength.
Yeah, fingers crossed for her. And I agree with you. Like with UP Warriors, so she was never a part of my playing 11, and she hadn't been in the greatest of form. So yeah, I don't think there was anything in the New Zealand series that would have made UP Warriors regret their choices there. They had a million problems, but not playing Chamari wasn't one of them. Will the series performance versus Sri Lanka give New Zealand some confidence in the upcoming series versus Australia, or the level of opposition is just miles apart? Well, you've answered it for us over there, Asim. Meanwhile, about this, Arun also asking us to talk about it. We will talk about it in the next episode, Arun, because abhi Australia and New Zealand, it is a T20I series. Firstly, I don't know what relevance is there. In fact, just before we went live, I was telling Neha, why on earth are they playing T20Is in an ODI World Cup here? You could have just played ODIs. Like, I know they played 3 in New Zealand back after the World Cup back in December, but they could have played 3 more ODIs. Yeah, what's the point of simply playing T20Is for the sake of it? But yeah, any which ways. Cricket.com, yep, thanks for correcting. We did bring that up earlier. They aren't in the qualifiers. Cricket.com also going on to say West Indies and either Ireland or Scotland will qualify. Oh, that's interesting. Let's see how that works out. Akshay, bro, what's the answer for this week's MNL quiz? Yeah, please disclose it. I guess Tristan Stubbs. Cricket, come on, don't you think it's a tad bit unfair on all those folks on MNL, just keying in their answers? Wait for next Monday, which is what, the 20, no, it'll be the 24th, yeah? On the 24th of March, I will definitely disclose the answer, and hopefully you've gotten it right over there. Divine returning for the Australia series could be for match practice. Yeah, I agree with you. There isn't too many games that New Zealand will be playing in the near future. So Divine's got this, then the 100, and then probably the CPL if she takes part before, of course, the World Cup. At least as things stand, that is. But yeah, since we've spoken about the 100 or touched upon the 100, let's talk about the draft as well. could not catch it live, I'll be honest, because WPL chal raha tha, IPL ki bhi baatein ho rahi thi. There were a lot of other things going around. But I did see the squads and how they've been built. Neha, let's start with you. What have you made of the draft so far? And also the fact that Indians, hardly any Indians have been picked. In fact, zero to be precise. The one that was retained, London Spirit, of course, retaining the player who helped them win the trophy last year, Deepti Sharma. But let's start from that itself. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, before the draft happened, we got the news that Deepti Sharma has been retained by London Spirit. A great thing, man. I think the kind of season she had, thanks to Janvi, I actually went back and saw the stats. I think Deepti Sharma had more than a reasonable season to kind of make a case for herself to be selected. Also, just looking at the composition of the squads for all of these teams, there are just like three overseas players, and when we live in a world which has Australian players, I think for Indian players and any other country's players to make a mark, you have to be like at that level. So I'm not entirely surprised. Plus, a lot of the Indian players, the kind of price range that they're put themselves in, like Richa Ghosh was at 65,000 pounds, and some of the other players were at 50 and 40, and I was like, this is going to be really really difficult. Convince the people, like the teams to bid on you. Plus, a lot of teams have like Aussies as their overseas players as well. A tad bit disappointed not to see the likes of Smriti Mandana. I mean, she did well for Southern Brave, right? Back in the day, Jemmy also, whenever she's gotten those opportunities to play for Northern Superchargers, she kind of regained her touch while she played for Northern Superchargers like back in the day. So you would expect that sort of affiliation loyalty hoga with the Indian players, with also the England tour that's happening, right? With the India versus England tour happening, you'd expect that some Indian players getting selected would make for great viewing, but I don't know. That clearly wasn't the case. A little sad on that, but otherwise, just looking at the team compositions, I think most of the teams look like very strong and solid, right? I mean, the kind of retentions itself gave you a sign. I really like Birmingham Phoenix, going for Georgia Wall. I think the way she's been performing, would love to see Georgia Wall, be a part of that setup. And London Spirit ki to hum baat kar chuke hain with Deepti Sharma, and I think it's the unit by itself. I didn't give them a chance that they would actually go on to win the 100 last year, but then funny things really happen. But yeah, I think all in all the squads do look good. Hoping that if there's like an injury replacement, some Indians get a look in. But just seeing the price some of them have quoted for themselves, it looks a little difficult. Yeah.
And also, I do think that availability itself would have been a bit of a concern in some sense. India are scheduled to play some ODIs in September, so I don't know if they would have wanted players missing out any part of it. August mein to usually 100 hota hai. I don't know if there would have been a direct overlap, but I can see, and also like Janvi over here mentions, hardly any of the big names entered the draft. Smriti, Harman, Jami, none of them entering or putting their names. So it is understandable, but dekhte hain wahan pe ki how they go about it. Before I share my thoughts, let's just take a few of the comments. I'm mildly surprised by this because the 26 World Cup is in England. Regarding the high prices for regarding the high prices for Richa, etc., it's maybe genuinely not to. I mean, it may genuinely not make any financial sense to go unless they're paid high amounts. WPL is lucrative. It is similar to what the English players do while putting their hands up for the IPL auction. They know how much their county stint is going to pay them, and they place a minimum. They register at a base price of at least that, which is why folks like David Billy, Will Smith, you see them at 1.52 crores, despite them not being the most obvious of choices out there. So I can see where they're coming from, and at the end of the day, if they don't make it, they don't make it. I don't think they're too bothered by it. So yeah, fair shout, Janvi. It could just be that. Let's take a few more. My God, Georgia Wall looks a powerhouse and hitting with ease. We can't. I mean, we loved what we saw of Georgia Wall, of course, Neha. But Birmingham Phoenix, they've also gone for her. She's already coming off of a more than decent WPL, just 3 games, but she's already made it count, so to say. You think she is someone to watch out for the future?
Absolutely, Akshay. I mean, I think in our watch along as well, I didn't want to jump the gun by calling her a generational talent, but then she's really, giving us signs and all the reasons as to why she can be one. I mean, Australia is currently dealing with, Alisa Healy being injured, not being a part of the setup for really long. So having someone like Georgia Wall is really, really a massive positive, right? And I think the fact that now she's in demand for a lot of these franchise leagues really bodes well for her game. To understand how different conditions work and making impact wherever you go. Right, just looking at Birmingham Phoenix as well, they already have Elise Perry and Megan Schutt. So you have your Aussie counterparts also there, and you'll just learn a lot from them and the overall setup as well. So really, really excited for Georgia Byrne. Hope she again, grows from strength to strength. And Australia knows, how to nurture and develop their talent. So no concerns on that front. And yeah, just rooting for her, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Sophie Devan was another name over there at the Birmingham Phoenix, who's now made the move to, who is it? Southern Brave, if I'm not wrong. So Danny White Hodge will be partnering with another RCB opener, not Smriti Mandana this time, will be Sophie Devine. Interesting to see that. Birmingham Phoenix, a got team of course, is he Wong? Yeah, that was also another name that we haven't heard of in the recent past. Unfortunately, hardly got any money. She was picked at one of the last she was one of the last picks, so to say, for the London Spirit, who've also let go of Meg Lanning, who's now moved to, who is it? Manchester? No, it's Oval Invincibles, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, Oval Invincibles. But all in all, interesting draft. Deandra Doughton getting picked again by the Manchester Originals, who already have the likes of Sophie Eccleston and all of them playing for them. So that was nice to see. But with the Indian names, understandable. ठीक है, वो तो अभी देखते हैं क्या होता है. Who were these? Who were some of the other overseas players? I'm just making sure I've gotten the list. Yeah, Chloe Tryon. ठीक है, मतलब in terms of big names, I don't think we've missed out on any. Meg Lanning, that was a big move. London Spirit say Oval Invincibles, but yeah, I mean it's good for Oval. They seem to be looking like a pretty decent squad right now in terms of the names that they've managed to pick over there. Lauren Winfield Hill will potentially now be opening with Meg Lanning. They've got Marizan Cup already. Alice Capsey is there. They managed to bring back Paige Schofield with what is it called, the right to match. I mean, whatever their version of a right to match is. So nice to see that. Hopefully they can do well this time around once again. And also it means we won't get to see Marizan Cup bowling to McLanning, जो काफी मजेदार तो होता था. But he can nonetheless, we won't complain about it. Let's take a few more comments before we wrap today's episode up. Yeah, I mean, what do you make of Richa's pricing in the 100 draft? Is it valuing herself and knowing she could be an asset, or foolhardy and effectively pricing her out of teams' plans, even if they wanted her? I mean, just to sum it up, Janvi, I agree with her, and I'm guessing Neha also agrees with this point. I don't think it was a case of her just wanting more money. It is a genuine case of, yeah, अगर मेरे को पैसा नहीं मिल रहा मैं क्यों जाऊँ, I'm earning more over here. Similar to what they talk about Ambani and all of that, right? I don't know, Neha, if you've seen those jokes. कि Ambani अगर if Mukesh Ambani is walking down the street and he drops a 100 rupee note, he's losing more money in just bending down and taking that 100 rupee note, so he'll just walk off. तो वैसा वाला सीन ही समझ रहा है. It is a joke that I keep going back to every time. I think of money and all of it. It's just hilarious. To me, the 100 is the most confusing to watch. That makes the two of us. I agree. I watched the first season just out of curiosity, but as a former, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm just hoping all these IPL investors coming in, it means they are able to, sort of arm twist the ECB into converting the 100 into a T20 format tournament, because this is just unnecessary at the very least. Like, और छोड़ो क्यों खेल रहे हो ये? So Swanee had different thoughts though when he came to MNL a month ago, and I asked him the same question. Do you think the 100 is going to stay, or do you think it could potentially be converted into a T20 tournament? They're like, no, the 100 is genuinely here to stay. My sons now, they think the T20 format is too long. They just love the 100. So you never know. I mean, I'm not a part of the younger crowd, I'm guessing. So देखते हैं क्या होता है वहाँ पे. A lot of comments अचानक से. Okay, let us take. Guys, I honestly think that for Indian women players to improve, they need to play other leagues like the WPL and the 100, not just the WPL. But again, I don't think they will pick domestic Indian players. Fair to say that, right, Neha? Like, irrespective of how good Kashvi Gautam performs or Kranti Gaud performs, it'll be a massive, massive punt for WPL or the 100 to, pick someone like them.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, all of these franchise leagues just have such limited slots for overseas players, right? Kahan they'll pick Indian domestic players unless some of these overseas players have just seen so much potential, or these coaching staff, that have been a part of the WPL franchisees feel that, this player is an answer. I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at these franchise leagues, be it the WBPL, WPL, the 100, you want to support and nurture your own country's talent, and then eventually give opportunities to the best of the best overseas players, right? I mean, that's how it ideally should work. I kind of see where cricket is coming from with respect to, how the Indian women players are not like as much in demand as say your Indian player, as your Australian players to make the cut for each of these leagues. I hope we reach a stage where the likes of Harmanpreet Kaur, Smriti Mandana snapped up like that. But also, I think it's important to factor in the workload management. Ever since the WPL has come into play, and BCCI is actually giving a damn and keeping a lot more bilateral series, tri series, and everything, right? So possibly a mix of two. Yeah.
All right, let us see how these tournaments or these franchises in particular look at some of the Indian youngsters, that is domestic youngsters. It'll be great to see some of them featuring for such tournaments. It'll be proud as well. I remember before the 2023 WPL began, the inaugural season, Disha Kasat had registered herself for the 100 draft. एंड मैं तो आई जस्ट यूज दैट एज अ मेट्रिक कि यार वो इतनी कॉन्फिडेंट है कि उसने 100 में रजिस्टर कर लिया, चलो फिर तो WPL में अच्छा करेगी. फिर मैंने देखा उनको बैटिंग करते हुए, तो yeah, that's, I'll just leave it at that. But there was one more. Yeah, let's just take this comment before we close today's episode. Not probably about the 100, but yeah, Samit goes on to say Delhi Capitals lost the bidding war for a few key players. Seeing them lose 3 finals, who do you think they regret not getting? Harman, Renuka, Richa, or Perry? Ooh, interesting question. Neha?
Honestly, this is a tough one. I think I'd say probably Harman, because I mean, they lost 2 finals to Mumbai Indians led by Harmanpreet Kaur. So probably that. But again, seeing Harman and Meg in the same team just wouldn't, like, I don't know, add up, because both of them are absolute captain material. So it would really, really be difficult. But again, man, Delhi losing can't be pinned down to, just not having the certain set of players. It's just about them not capitalizing certain opportunities. I'm still trying to process how they've lost those 3 finals. I mean, this, they say third time's the charm, but clearly wasn't in their case. A few tactical errors, just a lot of goof ups that happened, but that doesn't take away from their campaign. And I still don't think like missing out on any of these players has kind of affected that, because they have enough players to make up for whatever they are missing, and they've always built a good squad. They've given so much focus to building that Indian core, very enviable Indian core, I'd go on to say. And even the whole discourse about Meg Lanning probably not continuing, or becoming a mentor or whatnot. I don't know if that's again true, but I don't think Delhi lost just because of not having certain players. Like on a lighter note, we can probably talk about it, but again, wouldn't pin it on that.
I mean, capitalize wasn't the C word I thought you'd be going to while describing Delhi Capitals, but fair enough. That is Neha for me. And Neha for all you folks, of course. But amongst these 4 players, I think if there was one name they would have loved to have, I think it would be Richa Ghosh. Great, great, great addition. They never had a solid keeper. They never had a designated finisher, so to say. That's why they were struggling. And Richa's already shown last year, finally, you've seen him end up technically winning shot. You remember the game against Delhi Capitals where she got us so close. So had they had Richa Ghosh, that would have completely, sealed their 11. But of course, that does not mean कि single-handedly अगर Richa Ghosh होती तो tournament जीत ही जाते. Of course, you can never put it that way. वैसे तो at least Perry को ही ले सकते हो. Australian Mamba mentality, this, that, all of that nonsense. So you never know who could do well for you. So, but I would go for Richa Ghosh. Like if I were a part of the Delhi Capitals think tank, I would pick Richa Ghosh without skipping a heartbeat amongst these players. So that would be me. Arun says, Akshay, you did not speak anything about the Australia-New Zealand series at all. It's okay. Yeah, we told you, Arun, we will talk about it in the next episode because it's a 3 T20I series that's starting on the 19th or the 20th. Technically, आज ही start हो रहा है क्या या कल नहीं 21st, apologies. 21st it's starting. Yeah, so it's a 3 T20I series. We'll talk about it once it's done because अभी क्या ही बात करें, सिर्फ squads आए, मतलब we don't need to preview it as such. Alisa Healy is going to be back. She'll be playing as a batter alone. She won't be keeping, which means Georgia Wall might not feature. Yeah, देखते हैं how does Australia look at this. Will Beth Mooney be rested? WPL से आ रही है, so you never know. Maybe to just give her some rest, give her a breather, and Georgia Wall can come in. So that'll also be interesting. Georgia Wall and Alisa Healy opening. That'll also be nice to watch. But anyways, that's that from this episode of the Women's Cricket Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like always, please make sure with the like button, folks, and also share it with your friends. Whoever watches women's cricket, we are trying to build a community over here. And also subscribe to us if you haven't already. And all of you watching on Spotify, don't worry, we hear ya. Please make sure आप भी YouTube पे आके एक बार like button दबा दो. To put that in English as well. Please make sure you also hop onto YouTube, check the podcast out, and hit the like button over here as well. And all of you watching on next, what are you waiting for? Yeah, just come over here, not just hit the like button. Get chatty in the comment section. Let us know what you make of the WPL. Let us know what you've made of the New Zealand Sri Lanka series, of the upcoming World Cup qualifier, and we're more than happy to talk about it. Until then, it's a goodbye from all of us. Have a great, great, great evening, and have a great, great, great week.